Today on the WhereTraveler podcast, our hostess Teresa Rodriquez talks with Irene Levy Baker. She has lived all around the eastern United States, but she has spent the last 28 years living in, exploring, documenting, and loving one of America's oldest and greatest cities, Philadelphia. And when she moved there, she did one of the most fantastic things you could imagine doing in a new city. She got a job with the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. So Irene quickly became responsible for knowing the best sites, restaurants, museums, and monuments, and of course, that responsibility came with a paycheck. That tremendous experience uniquely qualified Irene to write the book 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia Before You Die, in which she reveals secrets of the city that are off the beaten paths. She gives readers tips she's learned from travel writers, chefs, restaurateurs, food critics, journalists, curators, and her fellow Philadelphians. The experience also led Irene to open Spotlight Public Relations, her PR firm that specializes in restaurants and hospitality. Her latest book is called Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia, because one book just wasn't enough to contain all of Irene's and Philadelphia's great culinary experiences. Irene sits down with Teresa today to discuss the books, the restaurants, and the fair and historic city. Now, if you like this kind of content and you want to support the WhereTraveler podcast, please go to iTunes or iHeartRadio or whichever app you open to hear us and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're feeling expressive, we'd love it if you'd write us a review and let other listeners know how you feel. Also, share the show. It really helps us reach new travelers and new listeners, and we really appreciate it. Along with our host, as always, Teresa Rodriquez, here's our special guest today, Irene Levy Baker.
You're listening to the WhereTraveler podcast, the audio companion for WhereTraveler magazine in print and online. For more information, go to wheretraveler.com. And now, Teresa Rodriquez, Editor-in-Chief for WhereTraveler San Francisco.
Hi, this is Teresa Rodriquez, your hostess with the WhereTraveler podcast. Today, we have a super awesome treat for you. We have the author of 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia Before You Die and Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Irene Levy Baker to the show. Woo!
Hey, Teresa, I'm so happy to be here today. Thanks.
Oh my goodness. I think that you have like the perfect job writing books about where to eat.
I think I do have the perfect job because I eat for a living.
That is so fantastic.
And I really love to tell people where to go.
That's perfect, right? You tell people where to go and you get to eat.
Yep.
Ideal. Well, what's super exciting about speaking with you today is I really don't know much about Philadelphia. I think I've gone through once and had a cheesesteak sandwich. So I think that what's going to be really awesome in these next 30 minutes is that you're going to share with us fantastic places to eat that are off the beaten track, that have nothing to do with cheese or steak. And
exactly.
Right? So can you tell us how you first got into this fantastic industry of eating for a living?
Sure. And one of the fun things about writing about Philadelphia's fantastic food scene is that a lot of people associate Philadelphia just with cheesesteaks. So they're surprised by how varied and fabulous Philadelphia's food scene is. So that's half the fun for sure. I got into it. I've lived all over the country. I've lived in Ohio, then Michigan, then Virginia, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, then Philadelphia. But I've been here in Philadelphia a good long time. I moved here in 1991. I immediately started working for the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau, where my job was to give tours to travel writers.
Awesome.
And I took them to restaurants and museums, and they paid me for it, believe it or not. After a decade there, I started my own public relations firm, Spotlight Public Relations, where I specialize in restaurants and hospitality. And after doing that for quite a while, I was approached by Reedy Press to write 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia. And it's been really exciting to share a lot of my knowledge about Philadelphia, including lots of tips about how to make things to enhance your experience at different places.
Yeah, so let's do that. I think what would be really great is if we talk about great places to eat, some of your tips and also, things to do, right? Because that's like the perfect trifecta, what to do, what to eat, and how to do it.
Right, definitely. So I always like to recommend in the book, in the 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia book, there are itineraries for young families, families with teens, empty nesters, dating. So I do have different itineraries for different demographics, but my favorite things to do are things you can't do anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like Reading Terminal Market, which is a over 125-year-old farmer's market. And you can just eat your way through it. And there's ethnic food. You can get your authentic Philadelphia cheesesteak there. You can get ice cream that's been made there, they've been there for over 125 years. All different kinds of foods. None of them are chains. They're all family-owned local foods. And it's right in the heart of the city, attached to the convention center.
So that's called, what was the name of the market?
That's Reading Terminal Market.
And what days of the week is Reading Terminal Market taking place?
Every single day. It's where the trains used to come into the city and the farmers used to bring their wares. And now it's 7-day-a-week place. Locals go there for lunch, to pick up things on their way home. Tourists love it. So it's right in the city.
What would you say would be the top 3 things to eat when you're there?
The top 3 things to eat. Well, I guess everybody needs to have a cheesesteak.
We're back to this cheesesteak, people.
So, yeah, I mean, most people who come to Philadelphia definitely want to have a cheesesteak.
Right. Before we even talk about where to get a cheesesteak, let's talk about what a cheesesteak is. So please elucidate our listeners.
Okay. So a cheesesteak is on like a hot dog roll shape, only bigger and thicker. The bread is very important. Then you have thinly sliced beef, onions, and cheese whiz on top.
Cheese whiz.
Don't be one of those people that eats it with chicken or with provolone. You got to do it like a Philadelphian does it.
So don't break the laws. Don't break the cheesesteak laws with provolone or chicken.
Many politicians have done that, and it has not gone well for them.
They are not in office currently.
There you go. You said it.
Okay, so you hear that, right? So it's bread. So it's like a roll. It's a big roll. And steak and onions. And then did you actually say cheese whiz?
You bet.
So that stuff that comes out of a container?
You bet.
Wow. Alrighty. Well, you know what? I have to admit, Irene, I've never had a cheesesteak. I think I had a fancy thing. I didn't actually have a real honest to goodness cheesesteak. And it's always a sandwich, right? It's not like a cheesesteak pie or a cheesesteak popsicle or...
I don't even want to think about a cheesesteak popsicle.
So you heard it. Cheesesteak sandwich with cheese whiz. You got to ask them, right? So at this station market, they've got honest to goodness, authentic cheesesteak sandwiches.
Yes. You can also go down to South Philadelphia. There's a corner right in the middle of the Italian market on South 9th Street where there are Pat's and Geno's, both of whom claim to have the best cheesesteaks. So what I recommend that people do is go to that corner, get with a friend, you get Pat's, he gets Geno's, trade halves, try them both and make your own decision.
Okay, well, do you lean towards the Pat's or the Geno side by any chance?
Well, it's funny you should mention lean because my tip when you're eating a cheesesteak is to do what a Philadelphian does and lean forward so the drips don't fall on your shirt.
Okay.
That's the way to eat a cheesesteak like a native.
Okay, that's one of the top 100 tips from Irene is to how to eat a cheesesteak sandwich. So we've got the cheesesteak covered. What are we going to eat next, Irene?
Well, so let's move beyond cheesesteaks, as you suggest, and talk about, we also have some of the finest restaurants in the country, like Sahab, which is Israeli restaurant by chef Michael Solomonov and his partner, Stephen Cook. And James Beard just named it the best restaurant in the country.
Fantastic. I love hearing that stuff.
We have Veg, which is a vegetarian restaurant, but it's also been named one of the best restaurants in the country. Not one of the best vegetarian, but one of the best restaurants.
I'd like to go back to talk about the Israeli restaurant. Tell us about what makes this restaurant so special. And why did it get a James Beard? Because to get a James Beard is a pretty big deal. So can you tell us about what's on the menu?
Right. And for people who aren't familiar with James Beard, it's like the Oscars for restaurants.
Correct.
And what makes his restaurant so special is the way he describes Israeli food is that it's a melting pot of flavors from, the Mediterranean countries all around, the Arabic countries, as well as the Eastern European flavors that the Eastern European Jews brought there too.
Awesome.
So he uses all those spices and has created something that people haven't had before.
Do you have a favorite dish there?
Well, the thing to get there, very much like when you're in Israel, is the small plates.
Okay.
He serves small plates of different kinds of dips, the hummuses and all kinds of different vegetables and different grilled vegetables, and trying all the different small plates with the fresh pita is amazing.
Is there a word in Hebrew for the small plates? Because I know like in Spanish it's tapas and in Turkish it's
they'll say, like salatine.
Salatine. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning a vegetarian restaurant. Can you tell us about that?
So what I like about Chef Rich Landau's veg is that rather than serving a lot of fake meat, he just does magical things with vegetables. Like they have never tasted so good before.
Wow.
So, and his restaurants are just incredible.
Can you tell us about one of the favorite dishes, the vegetarian dishes on the menu there?
Well, his menu is always changing. One of my particular favorites are what he does with, carrots. Something so pedestrian, but you just can't stop eating them. They're just so good.
What does he do with those carrots? Pray tell.
He also has Reuben. Now you think of Reuben with corned beef,
right?
But he has a vegetarian Reuben that has all those tastes in it, like the rye, like the sauerkraut. And the reason that his corned beef is so good is because even though he's vegan, he has a carnivore's palate.
Interesting.
So he still craves those flavors and works on making sure those flavors are in his food, even though there's no meat.
Wow. So do you see this trend in Philadelphia? Because I know that here in San Francisco, it's really taking off. Is this whole vegetarian and vegan, not just vegetarian, but vegan? We just had a vegan restaurant open up down in Cow Hollow and on Union Street. And a lot of mainstream restaurants are offering full-on vegetarian chef tasting menus now, which was never heard of before. Is that happening as well in Philadelphia?
I think that vegetarians and vegans have absolutely no trouble eating in Philadelphia. There's several great vegan and vegetarian restaurants. Every restaurant has many vegetarian and vegan options. So yeah, it's easier than ever to be vegan or vegetarian in Philadelphia.
Yeah, because the first thing people think of is a cheesesteak, and neither one of those is vegan or vegetarian.
No, for sure not. For sure not. But also, there's one more big trend of something is just starting to happen in Philadelphia. Some of our chefs are starting to win James Beard Awards.
I'm Teresa Rodriquez, Editor-in-Chief of Where San Francisco, and you're listening to Where Travel Podcast, where we love to talk about anything related to travel. For more information about this episode, as well as Where Traveler, be sure to check out WhereTraveler.com.
Some of our chefs are starting to win James Beard Awards, but for the first time, a nationally or internationally known chef has come into Philadelphia to open a restaurant.
Wow.
And that's John George von Gerichten, who just opened some restaurants in our new Four Seasons Hotel.
Fantastic.
In the Comcast Tower. So I'm hoping that that's a trend that some of the national and international chefs will start coming to us, knowing it's a great restaurant town.
Right. That's great. So let's talk about some of the things to do in your book of 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia Before You Die, since we know where to eat now.
Yes.
So tell us about Philadelphia for people who don't know much about Philadelphia, the historical relevance of Philadelphia to the United States of America and the Founding Fathers.
Sure. So one of our newest museums is the American Revolution Museum, which tells the story of the Revolutionary War, which is where I like to start in Philadelphia, because that's where it puts in perspective everything else we have here. It puts in perspective the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall, which was the nation's first capital, and the Constitution Center, because we had to fight that war against England and get our independence, obviously, before we started to write the Constitution and everything else. So if you're a Hamilton fan, that was all happening. That was all happening here in Philadelphia. So we have the historic district, which would, definitely something you need to hit when you're here. And then we have fun places like lots of outside beer gardens, like Spruce Street Harbor Park, and Magic Gardens, which isn't a garden at all, but it's a block-long maze made of mosaic murals. And you can walk through and around and over around in it. We are also the mural capital of the world. So we have murals painted on walls throughout the city. So those are the kinds of things that make Philadelphia special and different than other cities.
Yeah, I think that the historical part, we're actually going to be interviewing the cast of Hamilton next week for WhereTraveler. We're super excited about that. And I think that because of Hamilton, there's a resurgence of understanding the history and, of our founding fathers and what they did to make America a country. And can you tell us about any tours or sightseeing or, things that you would recommend for people who really would like to learn more about the Liberty Bell, for example? Is there anything that you would recommend tour-wise for that area?
Well, so in the historic district, I definitely recommend the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. They are both free, and the park rangers give really great descriptions of why they're important to the U.S.
Okay.
So
I think this is really important because, we interviewed on the Statue of Liberty and people think that they can just literally just show up at the they can just show up and you can't just show up. So can you just give our listeners just a little heads up about if they do want to go to these places, what they actually need to do or the websites in which they need to get tickets?
Sure. So for Independence Hall, most months of the year, you need to go to the visitor center, which is right across from it, and pick up free time tickets. For the Liberty Bell, you actually can just walk up and get in line and see, one of the nation's icons.
Wow.
Now, another totally fun thing to do, which is very close to the historic district, is Franklin Square, where there is a fountain that's timed to music and lights. There's a carousel. And one of my favorite things, especially with kids, is there is a mini golf course that all of the obstacles in it are Philadelphia icons.
Oh, cool.
So there's a mini Liberty Bell, a mini Chinese Friendship Gate, the Rocky Steps that you golf in between.
Uh-huh.
And what I recommend to people with kids, and this works for toddlers and teenagers, take your kid's picture next to the mini icons, then go to the real ones and take their picture. So the day becomes a scavenger hunt.
Oh, fun.
And it makes for very fun social media posts.
A great history lesson, right? It's such a great interactive history lesson.
Exactly. So you take their picture next to the Elfreth Alley, the oldest continuously operating street in America, and then you go to the real one and take the same picture. And they get a real kick out of it.
Yo, tell us about that street. That sounds pretty fascinating.
So Elfreth Alley is a small street with about 20 homes. It's the oldest continuously occupied street in America. And these are not mansions. These were not the pillars of the community who lived there, but they were working people who had shops downstairs. They lived upstairs. It was a melting pot of different nationalities, different religions, just like Philadelphia, thanks to our founder, William Penn. And it's been very well preserved. People go there all the time and walk down the street, which is a tiny little street, big enough for a horse.
Oh, wow.
Not big enough for a car. And twice a year, the people who live there open their doors and let people in, which is really exciting.
Wow.
You can actually see the insides of them.
Do you know what time of year those are?
They do it the June Fete, sometime in mid-June to let people in. Mm-hmm. And then around Christmas time in December they do, and everything is decorated for the holidays, and it's just beautiful.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, when you say the oldest street, what year was that street built? Isn't that amazing? Before we were actually a nation.
Yeah.
I just really find areas like Philadelphia really enchanting because of the fact that we have such a deep history there. I mean, here on the West Coast, where, we don't have that, we have a different type of history, but not one that's so ingrained in the Constitution and the governing of the United States. So tell us more. This is exciting. I love this stuff.
So Philadelphia was founded by William Penn. He put City Hall in the exact center of Center City, which is what we call downtown. And on the top of City Hall is a statue of William Penn. And it's a whole city block. Market runs east-west and Broad runs north-south. And then he had a very clever design. We are between two rivers, the Delaware River and the Schuylkill River. And the north-south streets are numeric, and the east-west streets are trees.
Oh.
And then in each of the four corners of the city is a park. So it makes it super easy to walk around and super easy to know where you are at all times. So if someone's at 1516 Chestnut Street, you know it's on Chestnut between 15th and 16th. Mm-hmm. And you know, as long as you memorize the order of the tree streets, you always know where you are and where you need to get to. It's a super walkable city because you can walk from one river to the other in about 45 minutes.
Wow, that's great. And tell us, do you know where the name Philadelphia came from? Why he named it Philadelphia?
Well, it's a city of brotherly love. Mm-hmm. And that's because he founded the city based on the idea of freedom of religion. He was a Quaker, and he welcomed people of every religion and nationality to come to the city, which is what makes it such a great melting pot, which is what makes it such a great one of the things that makes it such a great food city.
Right. And so Philadelphia means the city of brotherly love, and I guess Greek.
Correct.
I haven't looked up Greek lately, so.
Or sometimes we'll say the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic. So what are some of the other things? Let's talk about nightlife. We're out with our girlfriends there, or we're, with our significant other. We don't have the kiddos. What are we going to do? Tell us about the nightlife or live entertainment.
Philadelphia has the Avenue of the Arts, where we have many of our theaters and great restaurants. We also have some really interesting bars, like Hop Sing Laundromat, which is a secret speakeasy in Chinatown with no sign. You just have to know where it is. You ring the doorbell, and there are certain rules you have to follow. But if they let you in, it's a very special place. Condé Nast named it the best bar, not in the state, not in the country, but in the world.
Oh, I love it. So what was the name of the bar again?
Hop Sing Laundromat.
Oh, I love it. Hop Sing Laundromat. And so do we have to drop a secret word like Irene sent us?
Well, you could say that, and that might get you in, but you also have to know the rules. There are no shorts, no caps. You only want to ring the bell once. And you have to know where it is because there is no sign. Now, Lay, the owner, says the reason there's no sign is because he doesn't want people to happen across and say, hey, let's go in for a Budweiser.
Right.
He wants it to be a destination where people know what they're going for, which is very high-end, unusual drinks. He wants to be a conscious destination.
Oh, I love that. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before, a conscious destination.
Because if you just go in looking for a quick bud, you're going to be disappointed, and it's not. No, it's you want it to be a place people want to go.
I like
another place that.
Yep.
Another place that I'm very fond of is McGill's Old Ale House, which is the oldest continuously operating tavern in Philadelphia and one of the oldest in the country. It opened in 1860.
Wow!
And to give you perspective, that's the year Abe Lincoln was elected president.
Incredible.
Ma and Pa McGill opened it and raised their 13 children upstairs.
Wow. I guess that beer worked.
When Pa died, Ma ran the bar by herself through Prohibition until she was in her 90s.
How could she run a bar through Prohibition? Wasn't it legal?
Well, I heard that she served tea upstairs. So when she died, her daughter who grew up there upstairs, sold it to two brothers, the Spaniak brothers. And they eventually sold it to their daughter and niece, who now runs it today with her husband and her son. So in 159 years, it's been in two families. It's still family run, owned and operated.
Love it. Now, do
it's
they
on a little
brew?
alley.
Yeah.
They do not brew their own beer, but they do have 3 house beers.
Okay.
So you can only get there. But that's a really special place too.
So it's down a little alley, you were saying? I apologize.
It's down a little alley off of a main 13th Street in Midtown Village. And it's like a little charming find in this little alley. So that's one of my faves as well.
I love it. And one more fun little place to sneak away that's super Philadelphia.
since you like speakeasies, let me tell you about Khaleesies Social Club.
Okay.
100 years ago, there were lots of these social clubs for immigrants to Philadelphia. This one was for immigrants from Vasto, Italy. You had to be from Vasto, Italy to get in.
Wow.
After a couple of years, they opened the door a little bit and let in any immigrant as long as they were from Italy.
Oh.
And then after 100 years, the president passed it down to his nephew, who happened to be a well-known chef in the city, Joey Baldino, and he made a couple of changes. He changed all the recipes to his grandmother's with his own chefy twist, and he decided to let in anyone as long as they had a membership.
Oh.
And it was so good that it was named one of the best new in the country by Bon Appetit the year that it opened.
Wow.
It was so popular that he had to cut off memberships.
Wow. So how do you get in?
So you pull up to this little street full of row houses. And I don't know if you know what row houses are, but every house on the street's attached.
Okay.
And one of them says Khaleesi in neon above the door.
Oh, okay.
If the neon's on, it's open. And if the neon is off, it's closed. You ring the doorbell and two little eyes peek out at you and from a little slot in the door. And they're going to ask you if you have a membership, if you're with a friend who has a membership. And for a while, they started selling memberships again, although now they're not again.
Uh-oh.
But I imagine that over time, they'll continue to sell memberships now and then. So you have to be really lucky. Although Joey just came out with a cookbook. So if you can't get a membership, you can still make his recipes.
Love it.
If he lets you in, it's like walking back in time. You walk in and it's all Frank Sinatra music and Rat Pack. Sometimes there's a live accordion player. All the staff is always the same. Gabby's always behind the bar. Dolores, who looks like Ruth Gordon, is always there serving and she'll give you a hug. And by the time you leave, you know everybody sitting to your right at the bar and to your left at the bar.
So
it's a very special place.
Could I just walk up and ring the doorbell and say, I don't have a membership, but I want a martini?
Well, you'd be better off if you took me with you.
Okay, got that. I'm on my way.
But if you can't do that, I imagine at some point in the future, they will continue selling memberships again, because over the last 2 years, they've on and off been selling memberships.
And what is a membership? Is it thousands of dollars?
It's not. No, believe it or not, the membership's only $20. It's not the expense. It's awesome. The scarcity.
Got it. I love that. And does he sell them online, or you have to go show up and fill out an application?
Oh, no, you have to show up.
Okay.
There's no online.
There's nothing online. I love it. That's so great. Let's talk about, things to do outdoorsy in Philadelphia. Do you have any recommendations? Is there golf or parks, or tell us all about that?
Sure. Fairmount Park, which is right in the city, is the largest urban park in the country, bigger than Central Park. Yes, it's true.
Wow.
And it's full of outdoor activities as well as, jogging, running, biking, all those types of things. One of my favorite things is a little bit lesser known, which is Laurel Hill Cemetery, which is one of the oldest cemeteries in the country. Wow. With huge stone monuments. And it welcomes bicycles, joggers, walkers to go right through it.
Are there famous people buried there?
Well, one of the most recent, many famous names from Philadelphia, like Strawbridge, and there are people who died in Titanic who are buried there. One of the most recent people buried there is Harry Callis, who is the Phillies announcer.
Oh, got it.
And next to his grave is a giant stone microphone and seats from the former baseball stadium.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah. Another outdoor place that I just went to recently, for the first time actually, is there is a rodeo not far from Philadelphia called the Cowtown Rodeo.
Who would have known?
And it's like being in Wyoming, I imagine. There's calf roping and there's horse racing and there's bronco jumping, and it's hilarious.
And is that seasonal?
It is seasonal. And I have to tell you, one thing I especially loved about it was that the children all around me were fully focused on the rodeo, not on their telephones or any electronics.
Fantastic.
To me, that said a lot. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, how about sports? I know that there's Philly fans out there. So can you tell us about what sports teams are in the city of brotherly love?
Well, we have all the sports here in Philadelphia, and we're huge, huge sports fans. And one thing that's especially fun is touring the different stadiums, the Eagles Stadium, the Phillies Stadium, the Flyers and Sixers stadiums, and seeing some of the behind the scenes things in those stadiums, I think is really fun.
That's fantastic. And I have to admit, I do not watch sports, but I do have some Philly fans in my circle. So they're pretty hardcore. And
yes.
And so, yeah, getting to a Phillies game seems like to be one of the things you need to do when you go to Philadelphia.
I have to say, and I mean, winning the Super Bowl and the experience in Philadelphia was something we'll all remember for a lifetime. Hopefully it won't be the only time, but we are very passionate fans. No question about that.
Yeah, I love it. What are some other things that you want to share with our listeners about Philadelphia?
Well, all these stories are in my books, 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia and Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia. And they are available on my website, uniqueeatsphilly.com.
So, Irene, can you tell us about how people can find your books?
So people can find my books, 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia and Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia on my website, uniqueeatsphilly.com. If they go to my website and tell me they heard about it on your podcast, I'll sign it for them. They can also get the book at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and independent bookstores.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a treat. And what is the best way to find you online? Your Twitter account, your Instagram, what is it?
Now, I keep my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts up to date. So as new restaurants open, as things change, I post them there. So that's the best way to find out what's new and happening in Philadelphia. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia. And on Twitter, 100 Philly.
Fantastic. Well, we're so excited. I wish we had more time to go through more. I think we only got covered like 10. We have another 90 things that we could be talking about. Irene, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited to come to Philadelphia and meet you in person and have you take me to these speakeasies. And you can find this podcast on many places, your Apple Podcast, on WhereTraveler.com, Spotify, and also Irene will have it on her Twitter account as well. Once again, this is Teresa Rodriquez, your hostess of WhereTraveler Podcast. And until next time, safe travels.
Thank you, listeners, for joining me. You've been listening to the WhereTraveler Podcast, hosted by me, Teresa Rodriquez. This episode was produced and directed by Pete A. Turner, John Leon Guerrero, and Victoria Shepard. To listen to this podcast, find out more information about the crew, as well as WhereTraveler, visit WhereTraveler.com, your ultimate destination guide.